Hi, my name is Riley Mann with the National Sports Media Association, joined by Marcus Traxler, South Dakota's 2023 Sportswriter of the Year. How are you doing today, Marcus?
I'm good, Riley. How are you?
I'm doing good, thank you. Can you start us off by giving us a little overview about what you're doing today in the world of sports?
Sure. So I'm the sports editor, assistant editor here at the Mitchell Republic in Mitchell, South Dakota. I've been at the newspaper for about 10 years, worked in sports almost all that time, about 7 or 8 of the years. And yeah, cover a wide variety of stuff, high school sports, college sports. We're in South Dakota, so there's not a lot of professional sports, but you know, youth sports, outdoor stuff, all kinds of different things that we get to cover here. And for being in a city of 15,000 people in a rural area, there are a lot of opportunities to cover various things. So we get all kinds of opportunities throughout the year to cover sports.
That's awesome. How did you kind of get your foot in the door and in like what you're doing now? Because you said that you are the assistant editor, correct, for Mitchell
Mhm.
Republic. And where did you kind of start with that business, and how did that lead you to the position you're in right now?
Sure. So in college, I was a journalist at the student newspaper. Went to South Dakota State, and I always knew I wanted to do this for a career. I've always loved sports. I'm guessing a lot of people you're going to talk to are going to say that they've always loved sports, and I was just like them. And you get your foot in the door, and you start doing more and more things, and you're like, hey, this is something I'd really like to make as a career. And so I interned at this newspaper when I was still in college, and then when I was done. I had the connections, and they said, we'd love it if you come work here. And so I started as just a regular reporter, a region reporter as it's known here, and I covered small town stories. And then when an opportunity opened up in the sports staff, they knew I had an interest in that, and so I got promoted to that, and I really haven't looked back. So that's kind of how it's got going. I didn't expect to be here, for 10 years out of college. I didn't expect this to be my first and only job to this point, but it's been a very good opportunity. And as I like to joke, when they keep giving you more opportunities, they give you more responsibility, and it's going well. I haven't had a reason to leave. So, and I'm also from Minnesota, so it's reasonably close to my family and all that sort of stuff. So,
That's awesome. Well, congrats on working there for about 10 years, and that's really awesome. With that being
thanks.
said, yeah, what do you think differentiates you from other reporters?
I think there's an appreciation. I don't want to just say me, but I would say all the people that work here. We're really trying to, and I'm guessing this is an answer other people maybe would give as well. But we're in 2024, and yes, the score of the game matters a lot. But what are the score? After about 5 minutes, we all see the score on Twitter, and we're good. We know that. So what can we do that kind of brings us beyond just, hey, so and so had a good game, or this team's having success. What else can we write about this team? So maybe it's finding that, yeah, this player was coming off the bench last year, and now he's their star player, and we explain how he's made that growth. Or here's a kid who didn't play football 3 years ago, and now all of a sudden he's getting Division I offers. Explaining the why, explaining the how. Uh, that's how we're valuable as journalists. And I tell reporters all the time, context is everything. If we just write a story in a silo and we don't give people the understanding of why it's important or what it means, we're leaving something out. We're not giving the reporters or giving our readers the context that is so valuable. That's why we read. That's why we try to learn. So I think I really drive home the context thing. I try to drive home having an angle, have something to say about what you're covering. A couple weeks ago, one of the biggest events in South Dakota is the Summit League basketball tournament.
Yeah.
There's a trip to the NCAA tournament on the line. Well, everybody's covering the game. Everybody knows what the scores are. So when I'm there and, the media availability might be a press conference, I'm asking my questions with a very specific angle in mind. And it's based on what I saw during the game or maybe what I know about the programs we're covering. But I may only ask one or two questions, but they're for a very specific angle that I'm thinking about and a story that I want to work. And I don't really care if they're asked in a press conference setting, or I just know that that's what my story needs to be. I think that's what's going to set me apart from everybody else writing off this game, and that's kind of where I'm going. So I think being intentional and having a purpose, explaining the context, explaining where this story fits in the big scheme of why such and such is happening. is what makes us valuable, and I think can be important going forward.
For sure. And with you kind of explaining the process there, how you go about doing a story off the top of your head, can you think of any memorable or anything, any of your favorite stories that you've covered that you'd like to share?
I'm not going to have a good answer for that. There's so many different things we get to write about here. And
Yes.
honestly, one thing that, so I've kind of built a reputation of being able to write almost anything. So it's great I got the sports reporting award. It doesn't mean a lot for me. It means that I'm being recognized. That's great.
Yeah.
But I just got done writing for the last year. I've covered a case here in Mitchell, a legal case in the courts of, we have a rodeo that's been in town for 50 years, and they lease the land that they run the rodeo on from somebody else, and they've been in a legal dispute for the last year plus, and so, or 3 years, really back to COVID. They've been in court for a year, and so that really has nothing to do with anything that's happened on the playing field. It has nothing to do with cowboys or cowgirls, but it was a really important story to our community, and I kind of covered it blow by blow. And actually, as we're taping this, it very recently just ended. So that's one of those stories where you follow it, and it was not something that was necessarily um, you know national news or anything like that, but it's important to the community, and community journalism is kind of what we do. So I wouldn't say that's my favorite, but I know it's important, and I know it's
Yeah.
something that I did that not necessarily everybody else would get to do. You just get the opportunity to write. I think anytime that somebody lets you into their life, lets you into their story, whatever that may be, and unfortunately, with sports, or fortunately, however you want to look at it, sometimes we see people at their best when they're winning titles, and we see people at their worst
Sure.
where they may be battling cancer or whatever it may be. And those do lead to good stories sometimes. And so there's just examples of people fighting adversity. We hear that word all the time in sports. And, if you're able to tell that story in a way that's meaningful to the subject and to the reader, I think is a good thing.
Yeah, for sure. And that's awesome that you get to cover all the different ranges and different topics. You mentioned the award, and I read that you have won the state's Outstanding Young Journalist Award. Is that correct?
Yeah, so that's given out by the Newspaper Association in South Dakota. You got to be under 30 to win that award. So, yeah, I got that a few years ago.
Awesome. And I was just wondering if the feeling of winning this award is comparable to that.
Yeah, kind of two different. Sorry, I'm gonna wait. I don't know if this is. I'm gonna wait until this is done so that this is not a problem. Sorry.
No, you're good.
When you're in office, that's how it goes sometimes. Um, they're two separate feelings, I think, for me.
Yeah.
It's good to be. I would say no matter what, it's good to be recognized by your peers. When you're winning the outstanding young journalist, you're kind of on the right path because it's going to somebody that's under 30, and I think was a reward for hard work. And I think this is kind of the similar thing. I'm definitely being recognized by my peers, and I had a few people that said, "Hey, we're really happy that you won this." And I'm like, "I didn't know you even were voting on this." So, it's one of those things where it is a cool thing. I always think that, sometimes you get awards when you're not expecting them. And then there's times where you do work and you think you should be recognized in a certain way, and it's not. And that's okay. That's just kind of, if I turn in a story and Riley's the one that's judging it and she sees it a certain way and she doesn't pick mine as the way it is, I mean, that's kind of like any of our readers. They're going to see things subjectively. So I try not to get caught up too much in awards, but I can't sit here and say I'm not happy about winning it because it's cool.
That
Yeah.
is cool. It's awesome. Do you have a specific moment or remember anything this year that you believe led you to getting the award?
I think there have been a few stories that, quite frankly, have been important in our region that I wasn't the only one that covered. I mentioned the rodeo thing. I don't think that necessarily would be the main reason, but we had a pretty serious scandal with our Mitchell baseball team that did make national news, and so I know we were all on top of that story, and that was certainly probably part of why. And then I think just in general, we try to cover our region. We have 17 counties. We've got a big geographic area. If you look at South Dakota on a map and you look at the bottom center part of the state, we cover all that territory. So just being there, just trying to cover as much as we can. I think that's something that I think gains appreciation from readers and also our peers.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Congrats again. And before I let you go, I'm just going to ask one more question. Do you have any more exciting projects that you're looking forward to in this coming year?
It's an intimidating question that I don't necessarily have an answer to. I am looking forward. So Mitchell high school boys basketball is a big deal in South Dakota. They've won 17 state titles now, and they just came off a state title a couple weeks ago. So we had a lot of content around that, and so I'm now breathing a little easier now because we've gotten through some of that. So, but I think there'll be some stuff that we will look at over the summer. One of the things I've wanted to write about and just have not gotten to is, we've seen youth sports become bigger and bigger and bigger, and there's more money involved and all that sort of thing, and more pressure to get scholarships, more pressure to be successful at a young age. So that's something I've thought about, maybe spending a little more time on, and how it affects our region, and the players and coaches and all the different elements that are at play. So I know that's something that has been covered in other places, but I think in South Dakota it probably has its own considerations, just because how far away we are from a Chicago or Minneapolis. If you're going to play on a travel team and you're going to a big tournament, you're adding that many more miles, those hotel trips, all those sorts of things. So that's one thing I'd put on my list. And another one is that we see schools becoming more competitive with facilities and that sort of thing. Everybody talks about that in college, but high schools have kind of gotten in their own arms race in our region. And then of course NIL, right? That's
Yeah.
a topic at the college level, and I think everybody kind of looks at, well, is this going to happen in would this happen in high schools? And I don't think we can sit here and say that it won't ever happen.
Yeah.
So that may be a topic that we explore, going forward.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, and thanks for joining us today. And congrats again. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Riley.
Have a great day.